We are going to pivot because of the weather, and this is the first time that we've used this part of this facility, so we're going to utilize this space to do PT instead of being out in the rain, which is cool, so you don't have to get wet. Brian and his life partner are going to be leading us in PT today. We're lucky to have Rob here, Rob Wilson. Rob and Brian work together, so excellent resources for you guys. Paul Sharp, who's over here talking to our lead medical man.
His life partner.
His life partner.
Life partner as well.
Where's Alex?
Our other life partner.
So if we have any kind of emergencies this weekend, medical related, these will be our guys. Doesn't he look like the cover of like a hunting journal? Like, he's from Minnesota. He looks like Kyle works for like Bob's Duck Hunting Blind Service Emporium right out of... He looks good. Looks good. He looks good.
Looks like a logger.
Yeah, he looks like a... Oh, so you're all kinds of things. These guys are going to lead you this morning. We start out with this, what we're doing here to get our body prepped and our mind prepped. We're going to do some warm-up and breathing exercises with Brian and Rob, and then we're going to head upstairs and start our medical training this morning because there's no sense in us standing in the rain. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah. Cool. Do it.
We're good?
Yes.
Cool. Good morning. So we're going to incorporate, like Mickey said, some movement and breathing exercises. The importance of both of these things is fundamentally, foundationally, breathing is at the epicenter of everything you're doing, okay? You are born, first thing you do, you die, last thing you do, right? In between there is how you're managing energy. Your energy is all regulated through how you breathe. So what we've been playing with or experimenting with for the last decade or so is how that fits not only into performance, but how that fits into everyday life. And it just so happens that people who've been doing this, cultures who've been doing this for about 5,000 years, were not wrong. They've been yoga has been talking about this. The Tai Chi community has been talking about this. Most ancient civilizations have utilized breathing because they understood fundamentally that it is at the root of how we manage energy and what we do. Movement sits at the foundation of being a human being. Unfortunately, we don't do a whole lot of it anymore. In fact, we avoid it at almost all costs, which is a choice. And it's a problem because just because things in society and culture progress does not mean you get to stop, right? Or you have to stop. The moment you decide you are not going to move as much, you have just chosen to end your life sooner rather than later, whether you like that or not. More people die as a result of lack of movement than anything else. Lance Armstrong, what'd he do? Got cancer, and then how'd he come back? He kept moving his ass on his bike. He kept training. He kept moving forward. He kept doing things, regardless of him being an asshole and ratting out his whole team or being a dick for his whole team. The guy still came back and became basically, arguably, the greatest cyclist we've ever seen. Now nobody watches the Tour de France anymore, right? Regardless of that conversation, the fact is that the guy moved. People who move and continue to move live longer and live higher quality lives than those of us who choose not to. We're going to keep it simple because we already ate, okay? We're not going to do too much, but what I'd like you to do is stand up if you're sitting down, circle around, find some space. You want at least arm's distance from somebody. When we use breathing consciously, so when we think about it and I just say, hey, take a breath, inhale, exhale, you've taken, so the neurobiology of this, meaning how your nervous system works with it, you've taken what was going on autopilot coming off of your brainstem, and you've taken conscious control, which is in the most evolved part of your brain, the cortex, so your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part, the executive function part. You've added that layer to it. So you're now controlling something that your body does on autopilot. This is really important because as this week progresses for all of you, the stress is going to turn up. Breath control is stress control. So we're going to go through some things and we're going to show you really quickly how easy you can actually manipulate stress and when things start to heat up. So if you have questions throughout the week, you can ask. We'll talk a lot each morning about this stuff, and we're going to be integrating when we're on the line, when we're firing, etc. We'll be talking about these things to keep you aware of things you can control, because you're going to try and control things you have no control over. That's what we all do. We start to try and control things we have no control over, but we forget about the things that we actually do have control over, which is our own physiology. So just to start, hands out. With elbows locked and shoulders locked, just try and make circles with your wrists without moving anything else. Just a nice smooth circle all the way around, get 10. Keep your mouth shut for me. Your nose was designed with your respiratory system in mind. As soon as you have 10, you can reverse the direction, then go 10 in the other direction. Your mouth was designed with your communication system in mind and your digestive system in mind. Make sense? You've got one layer of filtration through your mouth when you breathe through your mouth. That's your tonsils. Anybody ever have their tonsils removed? Yep. Okay. Probably due to the fact that you're doing a little bit more mouth breathing than nose breathing. From here, elbows, circles. Trying to keep those shoulders locked and trying to find range of motion through those elbows. Then you'll get 10, work back around, 10 the other way. As soon as you've got that, we're going to go to shoulders. Open them up. One direction, then the other. So just hold right there. So give me 10 breaths with your mouth. You can drop your arms, don't you? 10 breaths with your mouth real quick. Just here's 9. Feeling some changes? Here's 10. Feel a change? Yeah? That's your sympathetic nervous system going on. Big. Things are starting to get a little lightheaded, maybe dizzy. Yeah? No shit. How many of you think being unconscious when you're breathing out of your mouth, this is what's basically going on? Is you're slowly, subtly starting to put yourself into more of a sympathetic drive, survival mode. Okay? Now, just shut your mouth, in through the nose, out through the nose. In and out. In and out. Keep going. You can't breathe as fast, right? You just automatically slowed it down. If anything, just shutting your mouth slows your respiration rate down. Fortunately, it also filters the absolute hell out of everything that's coming into your face, to your body. You've got more hair in the inside of this nose than you do on the skull of your head. Every single hair is coated in mucus, which is the first line of assault for your immune system that functions with your biology in order to understand bacteria and viruses that come in. It launches an attack, and sometimes up to 10 years later, the same thing that may have entered will have a response to it because it has things like killer B cells, T cells, etc., that are all responsible for this immune system. You humidify, you filter, and you start to spin the air in a way that actually slows the process down. Why would that be important? Oxygen does not become bioavailable unless there is a proper amount of carbon dioxide in the system. And what you felt when we breathed through the mouth, when there was no metabolic demand, was the retarding of oxygen to the system. You were not actually using oxygen. You were starting to flip the switch into more anaerobic activity because oxygen was not as available because we got rid of more carbon dioxide. So the slowing of breathing actually brings us into using more of that carbon dioxide. Ironically, the less adaptive we are to that carbon dioxide, the quicker we panic and the less fit we tend to actually be. So we start to flip out and think we need to breathe more. Right? Versus slowing it down. What did we used to do for panic attacks? Breathe into a bag. What are you breathing into a bag? Anybody who's been in the military understands, in some regards, they use rebreathers where you're rebreathing the carbon dioxide, right? What does carbon dioxide do? Vasodilator. So those of us who have arterial problems, cardiovascular problems, etc., we're probably overbreathing. Constriction happens when we aren't using the oxygen as much. So there's more oxygen in the red blood cells. It's just not bioavailable. All right, so this is just kind of higher thinking on this stuff. Now, go to the head, circle to the right, 10 times, taking a deep breath, and exhaling deep breath. Get that neck moving, and then you'll go 10 in the opposite direction. As you do this, what I'd like you to do is just open your mouth and take a breath. Then close your mouth and take a breath through your nose. Do you feel the difference and how that changes fundamentally? Okay, once you've got 10 there, just pause with me real quick. Put your hands as close as you can on the last ribs down here, around below, all right? Just clamp down a little bit with pressure. Now, take a breath through your mouth. Now take a breath through your nose. Feel the difference? That's mechanical difference. There will be a mechanical difference because we've actually applied more pressure, which has slowed the breathing down, which is forcing you to actually use more of that diaphragm, which circumnavigates your entire rib cage, right? The less we're using that diaphragm, the more we're compensating up through the chest, which is why you didn't feel that with your mouth. So if we just slouch over real quick, everybody just slouch for me. Take a big deep breath through your mouth. No problem, right? You can get away with a lot of shit mouth breathing. So it can come in play for real dire situations, right? Well, if I'm not in a dire situation, try this. Breathe through the nose now in that shitty position. Doesn't that suck? It's a little bit worse than the mouth, right? Because we're actually asking that diaphragm to work and get into a better position. So in thinking about that and what you're going to be going through for the week, the shittier positions that I'm in, the more I'm going to default to, which means the more I'm setting myself off, which means you all felt a little lightheaded, right, when we were doing that? Guess what's happening? Tunnel vision. You're focused, you're hyper-focused on something and tunneled out, and you're not seeing the big picture of things. You have more control than you think, so just slow it down and try and reorganize the position, all right? All right, ankles real quick. Right foot, 10 circles right, balancing on the left. Try and keep the big toe on your left foot down, right? While circling that right foot for 10 in one direction, 10 in the other direction. We're just getting the joints moving. We're not doing anything too difficult here. And it's okay if your balance sucks. It should if you don't do this. That doesn't mean you're a bad person, okay? Just means you haven't done this. These are just very simple things that you could do every single morning that will absolutely change your life if you haven't been doing them. because you are actually opening up the joints and moving around and getting things moving prior to actually engaging in your day. So you're increasing blood flow through the system. The lack of movement decreases the blood flow. Make sense? Not hard shit. 10 with the left. On the right foot, big toe. On the ground. As soon as you've got that, knee. So below the knee, 10 on the right, 10 on the left, and then go in the 10 on the right, and then go in the opposite direction. No need to speed through it. Just find your joints' range of motion. If it's difficult for you to understand that mechanically, that is okay. This is your first time probably doing this. You just don't have the motor control quite yet. Then go to the left. Once you've got 10 with the left, we'll go to the right again. With the hip, you lift the knee, come out, spin the knee around, bring it all the way around. So I'm just circumnavigating my hip complex. Now, as you do this, how stable can you make your torso? Think about what we did with that ribs, right? Take a breath. Try and stay stable as you do it. You're just increasing the intensity by doing that, but you're also asking more of the joint. Okay? Yeah. Think of each joint. How stable can I be as I do this? Can I think about the rib cage being anchored down and having a big deep breath, or am I just loosey-goosey all over the place? Does that mean I need to be stable all the time everywhere? No. But it's a good exercise just to increase the intensity and understand stability. So we'll switch to the left once you've got the right, if you haven't already done that. And I'm going to have Rob is now going to jump in. We're going to run through a little bit of a bigger warm-up piece. Rob and I have worked together for the last 6 years. Rob works in and around special warfare. He's from Virginia Beach. He and I co-created what's called the Art of Breath, which is kind of our foundational course that we teach, which is on performance and breathing. And we've been using what we're about to do with a lot of athletes, in particular world-class athletes and operators, to help not only with performance, but recovery, okay? So we're just gonna run through this stuff with Rob and then kind of get our day going.
Cool. So just a couple things before we start moving, because we're gonna get moving and get moving quick. Let me just ask you guys a question really quickly. Raise your hand if you think it's a good idea to change the oil in your truck when the engine's on fire. No, right? That's not a good idea. But that's how most of us treat our bodies. You wait until the thing's on fire and then you go, oh shit, probably should have done some maintenance here. Probably should have paid attention to the check engine light. Breathing and movement are the check engine light on the system. If you don't have a systematic approach, however simple, to checking in with your body, then your baseline of function is escaping you. So it doesn't matter how tactical you are or how much gear you have or how much stuff you layer on top of it, it's gonna be compensatory. You have to know what's going on in the basics of the system. So when you come out each morning and we do this work, that's what it's about. It's about having some direct connection to the function of the system, the baseline function, because everything else, any skill you develop, anything you learn is gonna branch out from the basic function of your physiology. So all that stuff that Brian was just talking about, the nasal breathing, being able to feel your rib mechanics, the joint circles, all that stuff, it can be really fancy and you can go to a great strength and conditioning facility, or you can move your arms around in circles, do some squats and some push-ups and go, how does that feel compared to yesterday? Because when you get in your truck every day and you turn the key, You listen and you go, well, what's that sound? That ain't right. I probably should do something about that. But we don't do it for the actual vehicle that we live inside of every single moment of every day, all the way until we die. That doesn't make much sense to me. So the stuff we're gonna do right now is really, really simple. We're gonna do some squats, we're gonna do some push-ups, we're gonna jog in place a little bit. Don't feel like you have to move through pain. Okay, so first of all, move through ranges of motion that are comfortable for you. If you need a modification, raise your hand or take a break. When we do these movements, I'm gonna ask you to sound off, okay? So we're gonna count out loud. Does that make sense? I don't think it does. So does that make sense? Yes. That's sounding off. Thank you very much. Cool. So when there's a question mark at the end, usually that indicates a response is required, okay? So make sure we're interacting. That's part of waking up is, hey, I'm making eye contact. I'm talking to you. I'm asking you a question. Yes, I understand. No, I don't. Does that make sense? Yes. Very good. Okay, so what we're gonna do is move our feet outside of our hip width, wherever you're comfortable. You're gonna start standing up nice and tall, all right? We're gonna go down to a level where your feet can stay flat and you feel comfortable. When we go down and come up, on the way up, we count. We're gonna do 10. Make sense? Yes. Awesome. Down. 1. There we go. Down. 2. Down. 3. Down. 4. Down. 5. Down. 6. Down. 7. Down. 8. Down. 9. Down. 10. Very good. All right, hands on the deck. You can have your legs straight, or if you need to, you can put your knees on the ground. It doesn't matter to me. All right? It's not a contest. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. 3. Down. 4. Down. 5. Down. 6. Down. 7. Down. 8. Down. 9. Down. 10. Awesome. Come on up. Woohoo! We're waking up now, aren't we? So we're going to take a breath in through your nose, out through your nose. In through your nose, out through your nose. One more. In through your nose, out through your nose, plug your nose, walk in place. Breathe when you want to. Take your 2 fingers on your right hand, put them on your carotid artery, feel that pulse. Tune in with what your heart's doing. What's your lungs doing right now? They want to take more air in. You can let it if you want to, or you can restrict it. Just pay attention.
If you don't know where your carotid is, if you find your throat, trachea, right in the groove.
Yeah. Put your fingers on your neck in the boom, boom, boom. That's your carotid. There we go. All right, we're gonna do it again. Feet outside your hips, feet stay flat, up nice and tall. We're gonna sound off. All right, down. 1. Down. 2. Down. 3. Down. 4. Down. 5. Down. 6. Down. 7. Down. 8. Down. 9. Down. 10. Very good. Hands on the deck. Ready. Down. 1. Down. 2. Down. 3. Down. 4. Down. 5. Down. 6. Down. 7. Down. 8. Down. 9. Down. 10. Awesome. Come on up. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. One more. In through your nose, out through your mouth, plug, walk. Breathe when you want to. Find your carotid. Breathe with me. Breathe in. Breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. Push air out. Like you're sighing after a really good shit, right? Yeah, everybody knows what I'm talking about though, right? In through your nose. Out through your mouth. You see how I'm pulsing it out? In through your nose. Pulse it out through your mouth. What happened to your heart rate that time? Say it out loud. It dropped. It dropped. It dropped. When somebody says, man, I need to slow my heart down, what do? You don't go, heart, slow down. Everybody intuitively knows, you go, whoo.
But he just said mouth breathing was bad. No. Context dependent. There's a time and a place. Metabolically speaking, it was time. You're using mouth breathing to regulate because the metabolic demand, meaning the energy demand, went up. So there's more of an offloading of carbon dioxide happening. So how do we get back to recovery? If it's a high stress situation, or even, okay, I'm starting to feel normal. The sooner I get back to slow, controlled breathing, the better off I am. The faster I recover. Make sense?
That was a question. Yes. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with 2 things before we move on to the next part of the day. 2 things, or we're going to stick with our car analogy. What's one of the worst things you could possibly do to a vehicle if you own it? You see them all around this place as you drive in. Not drive it. You leave it in the yard, you don't start it. What happens to a truck you don't start and you don't drive? That's right, it rusts to shit and it turns into a pile. And the same thing happens to you if you don't drive the vehicle. You got to turn it on. You don't have to drive it like you're in F1, but you got to drive it.
Yeah, don't think of it like that.
Check engine light.
Do not think of it like that.
Okay?
You don't have to be a race car. You're not.
Make sense? Yes. All right, so it can be this simple. It can be as simple. Your daily practice can be as simple as, I know where this joint is, I move it in some circles. I do some up and downs with my legs. I do some up and downs with my arms. I walk in place. So I'm saying to this vehicle, we got to do stuff. You're sending a message to your body. We're about to do something. Light up. Get some fluid moving through the system. Be ready to go. So you're improving your baseline of function and you're establishing a connection with how your body is working. You don't want to wait to do that until you're on the range, until you're in a moment of frustration, right? The other piece is there's a shifter in there, right? You can take control over the gears. If you find that heart rate's going, oh shit, I need a second, you can, let me clear that out, slow things down, and think. Make sense? If you guys have questions about that, that's why we're here, okay? Thank you for your attention.
Craft beef cattle get a little older, which gives them a higher propensity to gain some weight and get a little more natural marbling and tenderness. So this is our standard box. If you order one of our boxes, it comes in this. As long as you don't.
How much meat pound-wise can you fit in there? Like 15 pounds?
15 to 18 pounds, depending on ice packs, depending on where it's going.
And it comes frozen. When it leaves here, it's froze.
It's frozen, yes. And then actually there's a USDA food safety handling card that we insert in there that talks about proper food safety. If it shows up and you have issues, these are the guidelines. Anything over 40 degrees needs to be thrown away. And the thermodynamics of shipping boxes is actually really interesting. Everything goes in the box, we seal it, it goes straight to FedEx. Over time, it will start to unthaw, especially right now. It's 100 degrees outside. If it shows up to your place and any part of the box is still frozen, the whole box never got above 32 degrees. So basically everything starts at 0, climbs to 32 within the first 8 hours. And it'll hold at 32 until everything is unthawed and then it comes up. So there's this big plateau. So as long as we deliver in that plateau, we're good.
I got you sent me the one you've got on the floor, and I'm 800 miles from home, 900 miles from home, and everything was still totally frozen, which was great. I just passed it from your cooler to mine and took off to Tennessee with it.